Hey, everybody, it's great to see you. We're back here for my story. And today we've got this really cool guy, Jeff Hernandez. And I was just looking at his shoes before we started, and he's wearing Jordans. Like anybody who wears Jordans is cool, but he's got like authentic Jordans from like 1987. So he's really cool. No, they're not really that old, but
No, not that
they're
old.
not that old, but they're definitely a little
wish.
older than some of the new ones here. But anybody who wears Jordans, like man, that's cool. That's my era, the '80s, growing up
Okay.
with Michael Jordan. He went to North Carolina, and then he played for the Bulls, and I got to watch all those cool championship games. But at any rate, we're so excited to have Jeff here today. We're so excited for those of you who are watching this today. God has just been moving powerfully through these stories, and if you are a person who's touched by Jeff's story today, just leave a comment and let us know what God is doing in your life. But with that, Jeff, why don't you share like your story? You've got some fascinating things I never had heard about before today. I mean, I've done some ministry stuff with you. He's done some worship stuff with you, but there's a lot there to your story. So why don't you share what God's put on your heart?
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, pretty much my story, my testimony. So I was born and raised in the Middle East, as we talked earlier, Saudi Arabia. My dad worked there, and so I just happened to be born there with my family, my siblings, and I grew up there. I grew up Catholic, so we actually had a Catholic church there.
Wow.
But we used the school gym to have our churches because they
Okay.
can't have actual businesses there, and or buildings there to say. But yeah, it was cool. They allowed it. They were in the camps. So we had a Protestant church and a Catholic church there. And so that was my beginning as far as being introduced to Jesus and the whole
So your dad, what did your dad do there? How did you guys end up in Saudi Arabia?
he was an engineer, mechanical engineer.
Okay.
So to be honest, I don't even know exactly what he did. And
In the oil industry?
yeah, so he would be up in the field sometimes, but later in the years he was mostly working in the office.
Okay.
And maybe like helping the younger people who are going out in the fields, making sure that but he was very smart. I remember there was something in our house. It was like a snippet from a newspaper that my mom cut off, and it was something about him graduating early and like getting one of the highest scores in the Philippines. Wow. And then getting sent to Saudi Arabia to
So your dad and mom are Filipino and moved to Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
And then you were born in Saudi Arabia.
I was, yeah.
And then your dad worked in the oil field industry. So that's kind of like, for those of you, I shouldn't probably admit this if you've ever seen the movie The Kingdom. That was kind of like where you were growing up then, in these camps where there's security and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it was really pretty secure. There's like a security gate. I told you guys earlier there's like a checkpoint before the security gate of like I think it's the Saudi National Army or whatever.
Wow.
And there's like a sniper that's like positioned.
That's cool.
A few meters or a couple miles away, but you can see them. But it's nothing to be scared of,
Yeah.
They're just very protective there. And to be honest, like with that stuff in place, like there was very little crime there.
I'm sure there was.
There's very little crime. So
you got a sniper there, like you mess with someone, you get
like,
sniped.
Okay,
you're like, yeah.
So
they also cut your hands off and stuff like that,
stuff
right?
like that, yeah. If you steal, if you do drugs, whatever it is, yeah. So very little of that there, which was good. But yeah, so I grew up in the compounds with a bunch of people, different nationalities, ethnicities. From American to Canadian to Pakistani, Indian, Egyptian. Wow. Yeah, it was just all over the board. And it was great because it was a good exposure of all different kind of nationalities, cultures, belief systems. And so when I got to the States, it wasn't really like, oh, I'm brown, you're white, black, like whatever. It was just, you just see people and you kind of relate to them as people, Get to know them.
So you learned some Arabic, but
I learned some Arabic.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
If God wills.
Yeah,
that's like my one and
Inshallah. Yeah, they love saying that.
Salam.
Yeah,
peace.
salam. Salam alaikum is greeting them, and then you greet them back with malaikum salam, which is
okay.
I was like, oh, that's weird. Then I learned a bunch of bad words, which we won't say here.
Of course, I know all the Spanish words.
Yeah, they always teach you those first, But no, so it was good. The Saudi nationals, you know, they're very peaceful people. They're very friendly people.
Okay.
Um, and so it was just great growing up there. And you know, it's not like I guess what you would see in the news, like especially when like 9/11 stuff
Right.
happened, all that.
You
like,
were there, right?
I
At
was there.
9/11?
Yeah,
That had to been
I
a
remember
little
what I was
intense.
doing, where I was, and
Whoa.
then how school was the next day, like what we all did. Like, I remember we all just came to school. We didn't even have class for the first 4 hours. We just all sat. We were just
Wow.
like, the teacher was just like, let's just talk, guys. Let's just talk about your feelings. What do you guys are?
Wow.
Because, you know, our school was an American curriculum, so we spoke a lot of English.
Okay.
And so going around, like Saudi nationals would see us speaking English or hear us speaking English, and they would assume we're Americans. And
Whoa.
they're like, okay. And so there was a little point in there where they were kind of maybe a little hostile towards
Sure.
us, like the kids, but they didn't know any better.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. But the adults, Saudi nationals, they weren't like, oh, let's kick these guys out.
Right,
you know?
right.
So, but yeah, no, it was an interesting time, but yeah.
So you were introduced to Catholicism then as a young age.
Yeah,
and-
so yeah, we had the Catholic Church there. I went through the whole thing: baptism as a baby, communion is like second grade, I believe,
Okay.
and then there's another thing there, and then confirmation when I was about 12, 13,
Yeah.
something around that age. But yeah, so that's how I got exposed to Jesus and the church, but I never really truly understood it. You know, I was just
Mm.
like, all right, it's Jesus, it's God. But the Muslims believe, the
Mhm.
Saudis believe in Islam, so they're Muslims, so they believe in a God. So I'm like, and then I had Buddhist friends, I had Hindu friends, so I was like,
Mm.
oh, so we're just all kind of just, believing in the same thing, just different ways, So that was my viewpoint then. And so grew up there for the first 15 years of my life. And then I got sent out to boarding school here in Wisconsin,
Wow.
a Catholic boarding school, actually.
Oh, wow.
So the priest that was at our church there in Saudi Arabia, he used to be the old rector principal.
Okay.
So he would suggest, and the reason I got sent there actually was through my kind of like, I guess, disobedience or rebellion. So I was originally planned to go to the Philippines for school.
Okay.
So at 7th grade, I got caught smoking cigarettes
Okay.
by my mom. And this was a time where I would just keep it in my backpack, and my mom had the utmost trust for me. She would
Mhm.
never check my stuff. But this one day, my younger brother lost his Game Boy.
Yeah.
And so she started looking everywhere, and I told her, yeah, I can't find it anywhere. And then one day she just searched my bag. I went to the store, and I came back, and my mom and my dad were sitting at in my bed, and they're like, Jeff, come here. And so I was like, oh, what's going on? And they were like, what's this? And they showed it to me. I was like, oh. And so long story short, they were like, okay, we're not going to send you to the Philippines because you're going to be away from us. And in the Philippines, there's a lot of drug addicts, and
Okay.
it's bigger in the Philippines.
Sure.
And they wanted to keep an eye on me, and so I was gonna go to like just a regular school there. And so they're like, no, you're gonna stay here for 2 more years in Saudi, and then you're gonna go to a seminary, which an all boys Catholic boarding school. So I was like, oh snap! I was like, what am I gonna see there? What am I? I didn't know what to expect. So, but it was all, looking back, it's all God's divine plan. Working through our mistakes and getting us to the place where He wants us to go. So I ended up going to boarding school here in St. Lawrence Seminary. It's like
Wow.
up in Fond du Lac, in a little town called Mount Calvary.
Yeah.
And so, again, got exposed to a lot of, Christian values. There was morning prayer, evening prayer every day.
Wow.
We had mass about 3 times a week.
Okay.
So,
That was serious.
yeah. And there was a bunch of other stuff that we did, volunteer, like ministry stuff that we would have to do. But still, I didn't like really believe it in my heart. I was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm a Catholic. You know how people
Right,
identify as that. I was
right.
like, I'm a Catholic. Okay, cool. And then it wasn't until I went to college, at Cardinal Stretch University. I think it was the first couple years after like my sophomore year or something where I started thinking about what happens after death. I guess I started getting scared about like what happens after death. Like I don't know what brought it upon me, or if I experienced something I can't remember, but I just started thinking about that. So I started like YouTubing videos like what happens after death, or
Oh,
which
wow.
religion is the right
Yeah,
religion.
right.
Like is there an answer? And I still kept, getting drawn back to like, okay, we're just probably all the same, just different paths to it,
Interesting.
So I thought it was just all the religions just built on each other. And so I was like, okay, cool. But then I met a friend of mine. At this time, like you probably know, I like music.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah.
this time I started taking my music, I guess, career seriously.
Okay.
So I started writing songs, rapping, and I met a friend of mine there who was he was a rapper too, but he was always all about Jesus. He was always telling me, "Hey, Jesus is the way." He was just all about Jesus all the time, and so I would always be like, "Yeah, whatever," like whatever. He's the Jesus freak,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I know how that goes.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, cool. But he was planting seeds in my life.
Okay.
And then I had my best friend in high school. He got saved actually in 2011 or 2010, one of those years. And I remember he invited us to his church one time. And I was like, cool, I'll go. I went with my family actually. And then he warned us like the night before. He's like, oh, just to let you know, it's not going to be a regular Catholic service. I'm like, okay, whatever. I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
And then I went there and it was just praise and worship and then the preacher. But it was a little bit weird for me at that time. I was like, what is this? But then again, it was seeds planted in my life. And I know in the Bible it says, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open to you. And so I was seeking the truth. And so when you're seeking the truth genuinely, God will reveal himself to you. And so there was a moment, I think in 2013, I was at the Rave, the venue downtown.
Oh, yeah.
So I was at a J. Cole concert.
Nice.
J. Cole's one of my, favorite rappers back then. And he had his album called Born Sinner.
Interesting.
Okay, so, and my friend who was always about Jesus was like, hey, we got to go to a J. Cole concert. I was like, all right, cool. So I buy my tickets, head to this show, and then my friend, he's running late, and he's like, oh, I'll be there. And then I ask him, like, did you buy your tickets yet? He's like, no, don't worry, God's going to make a way. He's like, I'll buy it when I get there. I was like, dude, it's J. Cole. Like, at this time, J. Cole was, like, really, like, super popular. Yeah. So he's like, I was like, it's going to get sold out. He's like, don't worry, God's going to make a way. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I'm at the show. I'm doing my thing. He comes, and he's actually literally the last person to walk in.
Wow.
Like, have you ever been to the Rave?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. So
I saw NF there a couple years ago.
NF? Oh, yeah. I saw him a couple times there, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah, he is.
So anyways, I get to the Rave. He's the last person walking in. You go through security first. They pat you down, and then you get to the ticket guy. And so I'm over there. I'm waiting for him by the ticket guy. And he goes through, and then the ticket guy says, where's your ticket? And my friend was like, oh, they said they were sold out. I don't have it. And so I'm standing there. I'm like, kind of like pissed at my friend. I'm like, what happened? I told you to buy your ticket, man. In my head, I'm thinking this. I didn't say it. But I was about to say like, hey, let's, I'll meet you after the show. Like I'm going to go enjoy the show. And the ticket guy was like, oh, don't worry. You can just come on in. Ah,
sweet.
So that moment,
sweet.
And they never do that. They usually,
yeah.
They're usually very strict on that.
Wow.
So
he had faith, huh?
He had faith, and the faith got him in. And at that moment, I was like, oh, wow, God is good. And so my friend was like, Jeff, that's the first time you've ever said that.
Ooh.
So that made my eyes open, like
wow.
my spiritual eyes. And so at the whole concert, I was thinking about it. And, like when you see concerts, sometimes they have like biblical themes. And it was a Born Sinner tour. The title of the album was Born Sinner. So he had a lot of biblical themes in the concert. And so I just kept thinking about it. And I was like, oh, born sinner, that's me. Like, that's all of us. We're all born sinners. So, anyways, go through the whole show, wake up the next morning, and the first thing I do is I go and open up my Bible. And I read the Bible, and I can't remember what I read. I'm pretty sure it was the Gospels, but I can't remember if it was Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John.
Yeah.
But I just remember reading it, and I just remember, like, when I was reading it, like, words were coming to life. Like, what I would read in, like, religion class in high school, like, were so dead. But now it was like coming to life.
Wow.
Like it was like my eyes were like really open, and my mind was open, my heart was open. And so I was like, okay, cool. So this gotta be real. So next thing I know, I'm reading my Bible every day, studying it, praying, and I would say that's when I actually got born again. And
that morning or that
morning, when the Bible started coming to life, I was like, oh wow. And so I just like, Jesus gotta be the truth. And the next thing I know, I'm like my friend. I'm like, oh, Jesus is the way, telling everybody. I was dating my ex-girlfriend at the time, and she was Buddhist. So
Oh.
I started talking to her about Jesus. I'm like, yeah, no, Jesus, he's right. No, Jesus is the way. And we used to laugh at my friend and be like, yeah, he's kind of crazy, right? And then I was,
Oh, you're
and
crazy.
now she was like, you're actually acting like him now. I'm like, yeah, I guess. So that was my come to Jesus moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, like, leading up to that moment,
Mm-hmm.
how would you say your life was? Like, did you live a good life, or did you struggle in area?
I mean, I would not say I was like horrible
Yeah.
in the world standards.
Yeah.
I was, but I was not the best. You know, I would smoke weed. I
Okay.
would, you know, get drunk. I would party. I was selling drugs at the time.
Oh,
like
okay.
Marijuana only.
Yeah.
But still, I would fornicate a lot.
Okay, so you were trapped in sin,
Yeah,
basically.
I was in sin. Yeah, and it's, you know, it's as a kid when you're growing up, when you get to college, it's like that's what's put on you. Like
Yeah.
when you watch movies, like when you get to college, you're gonna have all the fun parties. You're gonna do all these
Right.
crazy things. It's the time to do it, so that later on in life you can take it more seriously. But you know, that's like the devil's trap, like telling you, hey, you got to do this at this part of your life, and then later on you could take your life seriously or something.
Did you ever feel like you were addicted to marijuana or addicted to alcohol, any of that stuff?
Alcohol, I was never.
Okay.
Marijuana, I was.
Okay.
Because that I only actually got delivered from that probably 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Wow.
it's been
So
it's
that's
pretty
a
recent.
story right there.
So, but
How
yeah.
did you get set free of that? I guess we're just jumping ahead. I
No,
don't know
no,
if
it's
you want
okay,
to
it's
jump
okay.
ahead or not.
So when I got saved,
yeah, well,
what I will say is like God doesn't, like we're justified right away,
yeah.
but then God works for in us.
Yeah,
It's a
talk
process,
about what
the
happened when you got
sanctification
saved
process.
then. So
when
what
I got
happened?
saved,
Yeah.
he slowly started taking stuff out of my, or convicting me of stuff.
Okay.
So first it was like, I think it was like partying and, you know, drinking a lot.
Okay.
I was like, all right, cool. But I was like, I never really enjoyed drinking anyway.
Okay.
Like I would go to parties and alcohol just never tasted good to me. But I was there because I liked the social aspect of
Yeah.
being with my friends and socializing, going to the clubs. I really hated that. But I was like, oh, my friends are going, so I got to go.
Okay.
So when that conviction came, I was like, all right, cool. I'm not missing out, you know. But then later on, I got convicted after that of fornication with my girlfriend at the time. And so that was a process. But that happened probably like 2015.
Okay.
And then marijuana, though, was like about, I would say 2019, 2020, when I got the conviction from the Lord to really say, hey, you got to stop.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a process. So so that's when I first got those thoughts. And then my friend, the guy who got saved in high school, he was trying to quit too as well. He was back and forth, you know. And so we would kind of just fellowship together and talk about our struggles. But it wasn't until, I would say 2.5 years ago, that's probably like what? It's 2024, 2022. And where I just made the conscious like decision in my mind and my heart. I was like, okay, I'm not going to, today's the day I'm going to actually give it up. Because I would give it up for a couple months.
Okay.
Then I'd come back to it, give it up, come back. And then this night where I just kind of just decided in my heart to actually give it up. And the crazy thing is, I think I shared this before, but the crazy thing was that night I went to sleep and I had, people call it sleep paralysis, but I had the out-of-body experience where I could see myself. So it was
Wow.
my spirit outside of my body.
Wow.
I could see myself. My physical body couldn't move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do nothing. And there was a shadowy figure right next to me. And so I was like, and looking back at it now, I know that's like the spirit or the demon of the marijuana that was in me.
Wow.
And it just got out. And so maybe it was trying to come back in.
Wow.
I don't know what it was trying to do, but, and I remember trying to say Jesus a million times.
Yeah.
Can't say it because your mouth can't move, but,
right.
but our spiritual mouth, you know, it can utter it in our hearts. So it was a speaking. It's Jesus. And as soon as it came out like Jesus, I finally opened my mouth. I woke up. So my spirit came back to my body. My left. No shadowy figure there.
Wow.
I was like, oh wow. So that
God
was the
just
night.
Set you free.
That was the
in
night.
that
So
night.
it wasn't anything I did or anything. It was just, I just decided like tonight's gonna be
Yeah.
the night I'm gonna actually give it up to the Lord and trust Him. And then that night I got set free, and I don't have any kind of like inclination to like go back to weed.
Wow.
Like I tell people all the time, like I enjoy the smell of it,
Mhm.
like not the smoking part of it,
yeah.
but like just the natural plant of it. But I'm not like, oh, I gotta smoke it.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
good.
So, yeah.
So you got saved. How old were you when you got saved then?
2013.
2013. Okay.
25.
Okay. So 2013. So 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so Yeah, walk us through a little bit else of what's happened in your life. I know you got a lot going on in your
Yeah,
life,
yeah, yeah.
and ministry wise and
Oh,
music wise and stuff like that.
yeah. So like I said, I was a music artist. So I started in 2012, but I was just making kind of secular music,
Okay.
Not that it was very like degrading like today's music is,
Yeah.
but it was not, God honoring. It was
Sure.
just regular music. And so, but I still continued making that music. Like I said earlier, I went on tour 2016,
Okay.
2018, independent tours with my friends, and we just kind of self-funded ourselves. But
And what were you doing? What kind of music were you doing?
like pop, hip hop stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, but it wasn't until one of the tours I came back, and I was kind of wondering like, dang, I'm not where I hoped I would be in this career field, by this time.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, I was in my car and I was driving, and I was thinking to myself, praying in my mind without saying it out loud. I was like, God, what do you want me to do with this music? And that's how I know it was God who responded, because only God knows our thoughts. The enemy can't get in there. He can plant stuff in our head, but I don't think he can get in there.
Yeah.
So as soon as I pull off the parking lot, like I pull off and there's a car that's in front of me, and I can't remember like if it's Psalm 37:5 or if it's Proverbs 14:6, but it's one of those where it was like I looked it up immediately, and it said, "Commit thy works to the Lord, and He'll establish all your plans."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Okay, God, all right." So I guess I'm gonna be, because I didn't really want to do Christian music. I was like, "Oh, it's
Right.
kind of corny and stuff," but back then, Christian music's come a long way now.
It has.
Yeah, so Christian rap, to be specific, but so I was like, okay, cool. So I was like, so ever since then, it took me a while to get it. I think that was like 2017, 2018, one of those years. And then I didn't actually do it full time until like, I would say 2020.
Wow.
Like when the pandemic actually, I was like, all right, that's when I renamed myself, because I used to call myself Clutch.
Okay.
It was a nickname I got
Yeah.
in college for coming through in the clutch.
Yeah, yeah.
Michael Jordan. That's why
Like,
I like.
in what regard were you clutch?
So in basketball, like we'd play
Okay.
basketball, but there was another notion was in when I was dealing drugs.
Okay.
People were like, "Oh, dang, you coming to
You're
clutch?"
college, man. I
'Cause
needed that right
I
now.
know, because there'd be times people hit me in the midnight, 1 a.m., and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, come on over, I got you."
Clutch. I'm
So I was like,
clutch.
"All right, cool." And then
They didn't call you the Candy Man. They called you Clutch.
No.
We had, when I was growing up, we had a guy who came over to our house. His name was Stan the Candy Man, and
Oh,
he
yeah?
wasn't selling candy. I can tell you that. So.
Yeah, but it was funny. No, and it's actually one of my friends who I was dealing to at the time. He was like, "Man, bro, you should." I don't know what name I had back then as a rapper, but he was like, "Bro, you should change your name to Clutch. Like you're always coming through Clutch." I was like, "All right, cool." So, but then when I said I was gonna become a Christian rapper or a Christian artist, I was like, "How can I differentiate it?"
Yeah.
And so I was like, and I remember that verse that Paul says that we're all saints when we believe in Jesus.
It's
Like
good.
not just Paul and Peter and them, but everyone who believes in Jesus is a saint. So I was like, okay, so I'll just put the saint in the front of that. So it was Saint Clutch.
Saint Clutch. I love it,
So-
man. Do you got anything you want to rap here for us?
Oh no,
Put you on the spot.
no, I'm not that type
You got to
of
be
rapper.
ready in season, out of season. Man. You got to have like a line or two for us, right? But
I mean, I got just like Job. Everybody's got a job,
that's good. I like that.
But yeah, so that's kind of like my music. Like
so
journey.
you're in the music space today. Then
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
into that 2012, and it's kind of
Mhm.
you started off secular, moved into Christian rap,
Yeah.
and you're doing media stuff and
Yeah, content marketing and stuff. And like we talked earlier, like I might start doing shows again, but I'm just waiting on God's timing. Like,
Okay.
I mean, I help lead worship at our church, but I will say, like the years prior when I was just doing secular music, like I had some big shows. Like I opened up at the Rave a couple times
Wow.
for some artists, and I think not Summerfest, but I used to do some work at Summerfest too. And but looking back now, I just know like God was preparing me for those, for this time, like all those times back then, like at this, how to be on stage, how to like crowd control, because you gotta be able to do those.
Oh,
you know?
wow.
Yeah. So, and so it was skills that I have now, and so that when He does give me that door to open, as far as like, now I want you to perform for my people,
That's cool. So, like, if you were to have like a theme for your life, or like kind of describe like something that you wanted to share with people, like, hey, here's something that God's put on my heart for you to do in your life. Like for me, I always say like life is about choices. For me, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
It's been about choices. Is there something like that God has put on your heart?
I would just say, like seek the truth genuinely,
Okay.
like of life. Just not like whenever, even when I evangelize to people or speak about Jesus to people, witness, I don't say, hey, you got to believe in Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I just tell them, hey, like, what do you believe in? Like, whether you believe from me or somewhere else, like, like seek the truth. When you seek the truth of life, like how this world works, like God will reveal himself to you. He likes genuine people, And so that's what I would tell people, is just seek the truth.
And so what did that like for you? So you were, you grew up Catholic, but you were around all these other Hindu, Buddhist, stuff like that. And then you had heard the word. Was there something that really like drew you to God and like what was that just, was it inside of you or in your mind? I was just kind of curious about that.
I mean, I don't know if anything really drew. I just always knew there was a God.
Okay.
Like I was like, we can't just be accidents
Yeah.
here. Like I never became an atheist or anything like that, but I just didn't know who he was, And but I always thought, I was just like, yeah, there has to be a God, and all my friends believe in a God or gods or whatever, so there has to be something out there. And if you think about, this time I was also thinking like, oh, there might be aliens and all this stuff. So with this universe so big, like, how can we just be the only ones here, So I'm like, so there's this big universe, there has to be something that created it.
And so then how like, because you said you had friends who were Buddhists and Hindus and stuff like that. So you understood a little bit maybe about their religion?
Yeah, a little bit. We never really talked about it though as kids, yeah.
And then at some point you just realize, hey, what the Bible says is true, or was there this process that you went through? I know there was that moment you talked about, but in you, what was this process of?
So learning actually. So when I started reading the Bible, I was like, oh, this is this life giving me life, right? But then I started getting questions from my girlfriend at the time. She's like, how do you know if it's true or not?
Okay.
And so that's when I actually stumbled upon Christian apologetics.
Okay.
How to defend the faith with not just blind faith, but actually like there's reason, there's logic, and come to find like the Bible is actually very trustworthy as far as an historical document. So I'm like, oh wow, like, but I was like, no one teaches this stuff at the church or at the school I went to, or at least I wasn't paying attention.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so that helped me strengthen my faith as far as believing like, okay, I can trust the Bible. I can trust that Jesus actually lived 2,000 years ago and that he actually rose from the dead because of the eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
And people don't die for a lie, people.
Right. That's good. I like that. It's a good one.
Yeah. There was that one example they gave was like with Nixon and the Watergate scandal.
Right.
Like those people who were lying, they lasted 2 weeks and then they gave it up.
They caved.
They caved. I'm like, these guys were like about to die, the apostles. Yeah. And they were like, they were dying with a smile on their face.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know if, that's crazy. So
they really believed.
They
so you started studying apologetics.
Yeah, so I started studying that about like 2015, 2016 at the time. And that was just where I started believing that actually, oh, this is truer than I actually thought it was, not just blind faith.
Yeah.
And the Bible doesn't talk about blind faith. It says faith with evidence. Even that part where Jesus the apostles were coming to him, or no, disciples. What was that? John's disciples. They were like, he's like, so are you the one, or should we wait for another? Right. And he was like, well, just look at the evidence. He wasn't say just believe. He said, look at the works that I've done.
It's good.
So I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis calls that reasoned faith. Not blind faith.
Yeah.
So you had a Buddhist girlfriend, and then to take it, she did you guys break up over religion?
No.
Other stuff. Okay.
It's just other stuff. But I mean, I would say she wasn't really a practicing Buddhist.
Okay.
But she was very open. Like she would, whenever we'd have discussions, like there were times where she like, oh, that makes sense.
Okay.
Oh, that's kind of true. And so I'm like, all right, cool. So I planted the seeds in her life, and God will water it, or God's been watering it, and the harvest comes when it comes, but I'm not going to be in that life anymore, in her
That's
life
cool.
anymore.
So what is God doing in your life today?
Oh, what's God doing in my life today? I mean, he's teaching me a lot, but he's teaching me more about like I mean, he's blessing me a lot. But he's teaching me more about like surrendering to him.
Wow.
So even as followers, like we still want to be in control of our lives
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times. And so that's one thing I'm learning more to do is just to let God take control and then do the things that he's called me to do. And then and then blessings come from that. So even with like my music career blowing up, like it's been 12 years, but I've had, I just started really getting more recognition the past 2-3 months.
Wow.
And that's come from surrendering it to God,
Wow.
Awesome.
So you didn't. I mean, it sounds like you had some stuff. You struggle with some drug addiction, alcohol
Mhm.
addiction. But did you ever feel like your life was out of control, or just wondering.
No, probably never out of control,
Okay.
but never peaceful.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
never
good.
peaceful. Like, you can go through party to party, drug
Yeah.
or you can smoke as many blunts as you want and you're still like seeking more out, and it never gave you peace, fulfilling peace. And so, yeah.
Now that once you started serving God, what happened then in that area for you with peace and?
Now I know that peace isn't about comfort. A lot of times we seek it out as comfort. You think like if everything's going well, that's a peaceful life. But peace is actually, I guess, peace throughout the chaos. Like your life can be going crazy, but you're at peace. You're calm. Like, okay, cool. God's got it handled. I'll take care. He'll take care of it. He'll show me what I got to do, what I don't got to do, and just leave it up to him.
So you, prior to your experience with God and encountering God, you didn't feel like there was peace in your life, and just so what does that look like practically speaking, not having peace in your life?
Just trying to keep seeking out like things that would make you feel comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the drugs, marijuana, kind
the
of
sex.
got it.
Yeah.
So you're looking for this feeling.
Yeah, you keep going to, hey friends, what are you guys doing this weekend? Okay, I'm there. But
Okay.
thinking that's gonna give you peace or
Fulfillment
or joy, but it doesn't.
Got
really,
it. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. It's just like, you don't have to have this big, huge, like, oh man, my life just was totally screwed up, or I was just, you know what I mean? Or, I think most people are probably like you. It's like, hey, I'm living kind of an ordinary life here. Not like, I've got some dreams and aspirations that I'm pursuing. But, I'm not like just completely messed up in my life, but I've got some areas that I'm struggling in. And I would say that most people out there, that area of peace is probably the one area where they just lack peace in their life.
Yeah.
Most people I talk to who have not surrendered to Jesus, you talk about surrender, that's the thing that they struggle with the most, is just finding peace and fulfillment in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to encourage you, if you're watching this here with us today online, just know that you can find true peace. You can find true fulfillment. Jesus is the Prince of Peace.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
And he brings peace to every storm in your life. And if you've been trying to find fulfillment you can Netflix binge and try to find fulfillment. You can listen to music all day and try to find fulfillment. You can smoke marijuana and try to find fulfillment. You can drink
eat all day.
You can eat all day, right? You can do all of these things, but you're not going to find true fulfillment. You can have sex. You can do all these things, but without Jesus, you will not find true fulfillment in your life. So, Jeff, thanks for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
And just How can people check out what you're doing online
Oh.
and your work and all that kind of stuff?
Gotcha. I mean, you can follow my socials. It's just Saint Clutch. So spell Saint out, Saint, and then Clutch with a K, Klutch. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. And yeah, you can just stay in tune with everything I'm doing there. It's pretty much music is the ministry that God has blessed me with. And so, and the gift of encouragement is the gift He's given me. So I just kind of encourage people with my music and, tell
Great.
people about Jesus, encourage other believers, and plant seeds to non-believers.
Well, hey, check out Jeff at Saint Clutch, and if you enjoyed today's discussion, just like us on Facebook or whatever medium you're watching this on, YouTube. We love you. God bless you. And next week we're going to have another great person come in and share their story. Take
Amen.
care.